The guy joining us right now on the line, his name is Thomas. He's a Las Vegas local. My understanding, he's also a big Raiders fan. And he contracted the coronavirus, and he's doing a lot better now. So we want to hear your story, Thomas. I appreciate you taking some time to join us. How are you?
I'm doing all right.
So, Thomas, start from the beginning. First of all, how long have you lived in Vegas, and what do you do for a living? Tell us a little bit just about yourself.
I've been living in Vegas for about 10 years. I'm originally from Oakland, California. Born and raised, diehard Raider fan from jump. I'm the job that I actually had out here before I got laid off. I used to work for Step Up Taxes. I was a manager.
Okay. Gotcha.
I mean,
okay, cool.
This coronavirus, man, is taking everybody by storm. I mean,
oh, no question. And by the way, I'm so sorry to hear that. I have no doubt you'll be jump back up on your feet. Okay, so let's start from square one here. What were the first symptoms you got where you thought, I'm not feeling too good? Tell us that first day where you knew something was wrong.
Man, you know what? The first day, me and my girl actually went and got our teeth whitened from a local or organic dental service. And man, after we got our teeth cleaned, we just did not feel right after that. And literally the following day, which was March 17th, we fell ill. I mean, it was light symptoms, but I mean, we definitely noticed the difference. And from that day on, I was just, I was kind of frightened. Because I knew we were sick from something. I just didn't know it was the coronavirus at the time.
Wow. So you think, Thomas, you think that you might have contracted the virus from this teeth whitening place. Do you think that's fair?
It's a possibility. I mean, the only other place that I visited after getting my teeth whitened was Whole Foods. And, after that, it was just, everything just went downhill, man.
Wow. So the next day, you don't feel good. By the way, did your girlfriend contract the virus also or no?
I believe she did. She had a very serious cough for about 2 weeks, but she's good. She didn't go through anything that I went through, thank God.
So let's talk about that, Thomas. Let's talk about what you went through.
So why did you decide to actually hospitalize yourself? Well, what symptoms made you think that you needed to be hospitalized?
Well, I really figured, taking my home remedies approach would, it would have prevented me from going to the hospital. What caused me to go, we both went on the 18th. Me and my girl, actually, and we were turned away because of our age. They told me, listen, man, you're 30, you're not going to really experience any severe symptoms. And they turned me away. They didn't give me any meds. And about, I would say, 4 or 5 days after that, I came down with a super high fever. Like, I literally just could not think straight. That was around the 26th. And I was like, you know what? I'm like 102 something degrees. I need to go into the hospital. And I went to the hospital. My girl took me to the hospital.
Okay, so take me to the next step. Can you tell us what hospital you went to, and what was that like for you when you're admitted into the hospital? Do they immediately give you a coronavirus test? Just explain to me your hospital experience from start to finish.
Well, I chose to go to St. Rose because they're one of the better hospitals in Las Vegas. I went to the ER, and when I got there, it was, I was literally walking as slow as a snail. I mean, it was just so, evident that I was like out of it. It was just evident. And
when you say walking like a snail, I'm sorry to interrupt you. You were having breathing issues. Is that what you're referring to?
Yes, I was having breathing issues. My immune system, I feel like my immune system just shut down. I was just taking it a step at a time because I didn't want to pass out. I didn't want to faint from shortness of breath. And I went into the ER, and they just took me through the regular, the regular logging in and just getting my information. But they knew, they seen me. It was just a completely 360 from the time I visited before to this time. It was just pretty evident. They told me that they would do the test this time, and they stuck this long Q-tip up my nose. I mean, it was like weird. I mean, it was super long. They just stuck it up my nose, man, and it was super uncomfortable. But I knew it was necessary to find out if I have contracted COVID-19. And
so you get tested, Thomas. I would imagine you're not leaving the hospital. They admit you because you're having trouble breathing. You're very sick. So how long did it take for them to give you the results of that test? And what were you going through when you were in the hospital? Did your symptoms get worse? Did they give you any medication?
You know what? After that visit, they told me it would take 3 days to get the test.
Right.
I didn't stay in the hospital at that moment. That it was a visit because I was sick. I had a high fever. They basically did the test. They told me it would take 3 days to get back. They did an X-ray on my lungs, and they told me that they see a start of pneumonia. And that's when they prescribed me medications and told me what I would need to do to self-isolate at that point.
Now, do you know what medications they prescribed you?
Well, at first they prescribed me amoxicillin along with they gave me Tylenol, amoxicillin, and zithromycin.
Gotcha. Okay, so tell me, from the time they prescribed you that medication, when did you actually feel that your symptoms were improving?
Man, you know what? They didn't improve. They got worse,
Wow.
actually.
Really? Wow.
Yeah, when I went home, they got worse, man. I mean, I couldn't sleep. I was, every single time my temperature, I would try to do things to get my temperature to come down. It would just get higher. I mean, it was like my fevers were like just out of control, man. And I was like, I thought to myself, I can't do this at home. I'll fucking die. Excuse my language. And, yeah, I mean, I was trying to do everything I could to break the fevers, and I just couldn't. And
so you go back to the hospital? Is that what happened?
Yeah, I went back to the hospital after that.
Uh-huh.
I was just like, I can't do this at home on my own, man.
Right. No, I don't blame you.
I'm going to die.
So Tom, if you're just joining us, we're speaking with Thomas. He's a local here in Las Vegas. He contracted the coronavirus, and he's kind of telling us that the hellish experience that he had to go through, and his girlfriend as well, by the way. So you go back to the hospital, but I want to get inside your head a little bit from a standpoint of, like, what are you going through mentally? I mean, you're watching the news like we all are, I would assume, and you're hearing about all these people that are dying and all these tragic stories. From a mental standpoint, Thomas, what is going through your mind, and how scared were you?
Man, you know what? My mental standpoint at that point was, how could this happen to me? I'm only 30 years old. I don't have any underlying issues. I don't have asthma. I don't have, any recollection of anything harmful to my health that would cause me to get severe symptoms like this. And I was just in all shock. I mean, I've seen a lot of false information being passed around saying that, young kids they don't really have symptoms. I'm hearing people thinking that, this is a race thing. It's not a race thing. It's not an age thing. You could be at I felt like you could be any age and catch this. I mean, that's where my mental state was. And I mean, I was at that point, I was willing to do whatever it took to survive. I just, I didn't want to die. So.
And so it was kind of a why me type of thought process, which I would probably have the exact same thing. Now, did you ever vape or anything like that over the course of your life?
I did. I actually vaped for about 4 years.
do you think that, and have doctors talked to you about that, and do you think that could have been part of the reason why you were trouble breathing? Look, I know that there are people throughout the country that have never smoked, that have never vaped, and they've had breathing issues, and sadly some of them have died.
Right.
So I'm not a doctor, but has anyone told you that the vaping could have been a part of the reason why your symptoms were so bad at such a young age?
You know what? That's the only thing I could pinpoint that would affect my lungs. And
Right.
I do believe that vaping had a big role in that. I really do. Because
Sure.
I'm aware that vaping, the vapor, the chemicals, it gives you wet lungs.
Right.
Which is why I stopped and quit 2 months ago. But obviously my lungs wasn't clear enough for me to dodge COVID-19.
Yeah, no, understandable. So from the time you got symptoms, from the time you feel 100% better, how long was that process? How long were you sick?
I mean, honestly, man, I felt sick for about 17 days, man.
Wow.
I mean, it has to be like even right now, I'm not all the way 100% to my health. I mean, I have
Wow.
when I got sent home with an oxygen tank.
Oh my.
And you still have that?
I still have that, and I still use it. I'm not as much because I do feel my health getting better slowly but surely. But I still have an oxygen tank right here next to my bed.
And so going back to obviously you were finally admitted to the ER. Were you ever on a ventilator, or were you just on oxygen when you're in the ER? And did they give you another course of medication once you were actually in the hospital?
You know what? They didn't give me hydroxychloroquine until I asked for it. I thank God I did not get on a ventilator. I did not need that much oxygen. I mean, I could still breathe. I mean, my oxygen levels was the main reason why I was actually told to go home. I mean, they say typically you want to be at about 92% oxygen. I mean, I kept dropping down to about like 89. It would fluctuate from like 89 to like 93. So my oxygen levels were pretty up and down, but it wasn't severe to the point to where I would need a ventilator.
But Thomas, here's what I want you to do, because you've experienced this, and even though it wasn't to the severity of, you couldn't talk and you weren't on a ventilator, you were still a fairly serious case. You're a young man, as you mentioned. You're 30 years old. You're having trouble breathing. Even when you walk, you're having trouble breathing. You had to go back to the ER. You've been through a hellish type experience. So I want you to speak to the Las Vegas locals out there, maybe some of whom feel like they might have the virus. Maybe some of them have some of the early symptoms that you had. I want you to talk to them right now. What advice would you give them? And just talk to some of those people out there that are worried and are scared, because you've been through it.
You know what? I would say this. If you feel like you have symptoms, I would say self-isolation is a great start. Really, people probably don't think that going to a grocery store is harmful. I really feel like, staying at home, trying to find any delivery service possible to further continue social distancing is very important. If you're having symptoms and you can control those symptoms at home, I would say do that. But if you're having symptoms that you're afraid of and that it's out of your control, I would say go to the hospital immediately and seek help. Because from my recollection, a lot of people are dying at home because they are self-isolating and they would choose to stay home rather than go to a hospital. So I would say if it's anything out of your control that you can't control and your body is giving you issues, man, go to the hospital. Don't wait a second. I mean, your health is number one.
Right.
And take it serious. Take it
That's
serious.
great. That's great advice, Thomas. I have to ask you one, Ray. By the way, let me just say this. I'm so happy that you're doing better. We're glad that your girlfriend is okay. It sounds to me that you're going to make a full recovery, and we're very happy for you that you are smart enough let's be honest, some people out there, they don't want to go to the hospital. They don't want to go to see the doctor. They dread it, right? You were one of those people that said, no, I need to go back. Something's very wrong here. And it probably saved your life, quite frankly. Thank God that you were able to do that. And that's great advice that you're giving to others out there. Let's have a little fun here. I know you're a big Raiders fan. Let's try to talk about something positive now. Do you think there's a quarterback? Yeah, do you think there's a quarterback controversy with the? I still call them the Oakland Raiders. I can't believe I was
can't do that again, Brian.
With the Las Vegas
cannot do
Raiders,
that anymore.
Mariota and of course Carr. Do you think that we have a quarterback controversy? What are your thoughts on that position?
You know what my thoughts is? I mean, Carr, man, he's a great quarterback. You know, I mean, I can't really fault him, man. He's been going through so many different changes. Us as Raiders fans, has been going through a lot of changes. Man, my whole thoughts is, you know, with Mariota coming in, of course, you know, he's a backup, but, you know, with every backup position, taking that number one spot is literally, that's the whole point. You know, that's what you're coming in to do. But, you know, I mean, Carr is so accurate, man. I mean, and I feel like if he gets pushed in any kind of direction, I mean, it's just going to go up. I mean, he's been progressing over the years. He hasn't really degressed. So my thoughts on that is, I mean, we're going to probably either see the best of Carr or the worst of Carr this year.
So I want to ask you about the NFL draft, the upcoming NFL draft. The Raiders just picked Demarius Randall. You know, they've got LaMarcus Joyner. They've got plenty of talent at safety. What position? Because I had them drafting Grant Delpit, but what position do you think they should draft for the first round of the upcoming draft?
You know what? My heart says CeeDee Lamb at 12. I mean, I really want them to go wide receiver, but you know, from listening to Mayock for so long, for so many years, I mean, he's a analytics guy. I mean, he's a numbers.
He's the best. He's the best.
Yeah, I believe in Mayock 100%. Well, I mean, with his thoughts on not going for a wide receiver is kind of heartbreaking. I believe that, you know, with that information, well, how he views the draft, with that being in mind, I think we go cornerback, defensive tackle at 19, 12. I mean, if we go wide receiver, I would not be mad. I know we're going to get one of the best players in the draft, but I figure we go defensive back.
Gotcha. Well, I got to tell you something, Thomas. You're a pretty knowledgeable guy when it comes to the Raiders.
Absolutely.
We might have to have you on again to analyze some of these Las Vegas Raiders games. I hope we can meet you at a game. I really do, Thomas, and I appreciate you so much for sharing your story to our listeners. I think it's very important that they hear from people like you and what you had to experience and go through. I actually think it could save lives. I really do. Glad you're doing well. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us, man. We really do appreciate it, Thomas, and please get healthy. I know you're on your way to that, and stay safe. We really appreciate your time. Thank you so much.
I appreciate you guys for having me.
Sure, you bet. Thank you so much,
thanks
Thomas.
a lot, Thomas.
He's Thomas, a local Las Vegas resident who sadly lost his job, like many, but even worse, the poor guy contracts the coronavirus.